Something unprecedented happened in this generation of consoles. Instead of prices depreciating over time, we've seen prices for consoles increase throughout the span of their life cycle for the first time in gaming history. And I wish I could tell you that that whole situation is going to get better, but it's looking like it's actually going to get worse. And it has in large part to do with artificial intelligence and how much that is increasing the demand for certain chips and components to the point where it's forcing companies to raise prices. So let's take a look at what's been happening over the past couple of weeks, starting with this article from Tom's Hardware, published on November 4th, 2025, that talks about the skyrocketing prices of DRAM, vital components to, gaming devices and any computing device. You can scroll down here and read how, according to reports, DRAM contract prices have increased by a whopping 171.8% year over year as of quarter 3 of 2025. And it's now to the point where DRAM prices are outpacing the price increase of gold. That is insane and unprecedented. Q4 of 2025 will mark the start of a major DRAM bull market, with 2026 likely seeing a severe DRAM shortage. And when demand outpaces supply by such a vast degree, what you get are massive price increases due to the fact that the products that are being purchased become rarer. And why this is happening is explained aptly in this paragraph of this article. Despite server-grade RDIMM memory and HBM being the main attractions for hardware manufacturers building AI servers, the entire memory industry, including DDR5, is being affected by price increases. The problem for consumers is that memory manufacturers are shifting production, prioritizing toward data center-focused memory types and producing less consumer-focused DDR5 memory as a result. Because demand for more AI and server-focused chips are increasing, that's what companies are focusing more on, which means that the consumer side of things, DDR5 memory and whatnot, the supply of those components will be significantly reduced while demand stays the same, if not increases, and so prices will go up. Then fast forward to 2 weeks later, and we got this article from news outlet Reuters, whose headline reads, quote, exclusive, Samsung hikes memory chip prices by up to 60% as shortage worsens, sources say. This article cites how certain memory chips are in super high demand and in short supply due to the fact that there's currently a global race to build AI data centers, and shortage of products, shortage of supply, again, means that prices go up as demand also increases for those products. And so you've got specific examples like how 32 gigabyte DDR5 memory chip modules jumped from $149 in September to $239 in November, or, more accurately, $150 to $240. And then you've got 16 gigabyte and 128 gigabyte DDR5 chips. Those prices jumped up by about 50%. So 16 gigabyte DDR5 RAM is now $135, and 128 gigabyte DDR5 chips are now, almost $1,200 respectively. You've got prices for 64 gigabyte DDR5 and 96 gigabyte DDR5 also having gone up by 30%. And all this is also having a trickle effect on other components like GPUs. In fact, right here we have an article from Video Cards reporting on an insider having learned that AMD has notified partners about a second price increase for its GPUs, this time tied directly to higher memory procurement costs. All of this is a trickle effect from past occurrences like DDR5 module prices going up by as much as 60%. We're talking about DRAM contract prices rising roughly 170% year over year. And now we're looking at a situation where GDDR6 memory used in graphics cards has also seen increases of around 30% as foundries and memory vendors shift capacity towards server, DDR5, HBM, and AI products. So yeah, due to AI, demand for memory chips across the board has increased, while supply has been more focused on those server elements and AI elements, those kinds of chips. And so that means there's less of the consumer stuff being produced where it's for more everyday devices. And so it's just a situation of low supply, high demand, and in turn, high prices. And so this brings us to how all of this is going to impact gaming specifically. And among the discussions that have been happening recently is surrounding the Steam Machine, which does utilize AMD chips and components whose price has not been revealed yet. Valve has said that they're trying to make it affordable, but also its price is going to be more in line with gaming PCs rather than traditional consoles. It's not going to be subsidized. And one of the reasons why Valve hasn't revealed price points that they've talked about is due to the fact that there are just a lot of economic factors that are changing live as we speak. And, there's elements of the tariff stuff obviously taking effect, but also it's just the ever-changing landscape of these memory chips and computing components whose prices are fluctuating based on just the way the industry is trending, especially where AI is concerned, and that's dominating so much of the focus on the part of chip manufacturers. And so you've got folks highlighting how AI has absolutely ruined an entire technological economy. RAM kits are 180% more expensive, and GPUs are next again for another price increase. And so yeah, this user highlights aptly how next generation of consoles and PC hardware are going to inflate dramatically until the AI bubble pops, and it will. Though who knows how long that will take. With AI causing shortages when it comes to chips necessary to create game consoles and PCs and, devices like the Steam Machine, it means that those components will be less available, and in turn, companies are going to be able to make less of the devices, the gaming devices, the computing devices that they're intending to manufacture. And so because they only have so much to ship, they are incentivized to increase prices because they only have so much supply. They are capped in terms of how many units they can produce of what they're selling because the components to produce those devices are in short supply, in high demand, and at high cost. I mean, here we have a specific example of how 64 gigabyte DDR5 prices have risen from $150 to $500 in less than 2 months, which is in line with that 170 to 180% price increase for DRAM. And yeah, I mean, if you look at the price history via Amazon, you can see the fluctuation in prices and how ridiculous prices are at now, peaking to a level that is completely unprecedented for this kind of computing component for memory chips. And then right here we have content creator Legendary Drops kind of playing devil's advocate on behalf of Valve when it comes to them not revealing prices yet and them stating that prices for the Steam Machine will definitely not be in the region of, like $500 and $600. It'll likely be closer to $700, $800. Again, trying to be competitive in the PC gaming landscape when it comes to PCs with similar components, but not trying to subsidize the machine to be competitive with traditional consoles that make up for losses in hardware sales through software sales and exclusives and the like. Highlighting how Valve isn't posting the price right now because they're likely hoping for things to change. The AI bubble has pushed RAM to obscene prices, almost an increase of 200% this year. People say that the Steam Machine should be $500, except when you look at the market right now, that's roughly the price of RAM alone in this day and age. So yeah, those are the market elements, the tariffs, and then the current situation with memory chips and whatnot that Valve is tracking before they decide on a price point, because once they do decide on that, that's locked down. And if they set the wrong price and economic conditions change where that becomes untenable, then this might screw over their business. And then outside of PCs, you've got the traditional console space, which are PCs except tailored to gaming. And so they too use a lot of the same components and chips and computing units that are being impacted by the current economic conditions, and with AI impacting the prices and the supply and demand of all of these elements. And so, yeah, it is aptly highlighted here by Kotaku how consoles like PS5 and Xbox Series machines, as well as the Steam Machine, all use AMD chips, and with AMD recently being reported to have reacted to memory price increases and aiming to increase prices of GPUs as well, it may not be an unlikely prospect that we'll see additional price increases for PlayStations, for Nintendo Switches, and for Xboxes on top of the price increases that we have already seen. I mean, just this year alone, we have seen prices for Nintendo Switch 2 accessories increase. And not once, but twice. First time it happened before the Nintendo Switch 2's launch, and then it happened a second time on August of 2025 when we not only saw Nintendo Switch 2 accessories prices increase, but Nintendo Switch 1 prices also went up significantly in price, with price increases for the consoles ranging anywhere from $30 to $50. Also in August of 2025, we saw PlayStation 5 change its prices and see increases by roughly $50 across the board. And then there's Microsoft, who probably saw the most infamous of price increases, not only because prices went up so significantly, like the Xbox Series S 512GB increasing its price by $80, or the Xbox Series X here going from $500 to $600, a $100 price increase, or the Xbox Series X 2TB Galaxy Special Edition version going up by $130 from $600 to $730. A month later, we saw a second price increase that was also substantial. So Xbox Series S from $380 to $400, the Series X from $600 to $650, and then like the 2TB version of the Series X from $730 to $800. And with Xbox in particular, even development kits saw a price hike from $1,500 to $2,000, roughly a 33% jump in price. And that's on top of price increases in other areas like software, where games are now $80 instead of $70, and then subscription services like Xbox Game Pass went up to a whopping $30 a month, a 50% price increase from $20, which means that Xbox Game Pass is now $360 a year. Beyond the hardware front, price increases have already been substantial, which by itself is already unprecedented. But these additional conditions being added on top with how AI is impacting the cost, the supply and demand of chips, memory chips in particular, you may very well have to brace yourself for yet an additional price increase across the board. And that also means that the Steam machine can't be as cheap as you would like it to be, because it's just not tenable to do so due to the rising cost of memory chips. All this for AI, a technology that has proven to be more morally questionable than not. There have been great use cases for AI, and that should be encouraged for technological advancements and to make certain processes more convenient. But on the other side of the fence, so much of AI is generative AI that just steals data and art and basically is a giant plagiarism machine. With multiple companies racing towards becoming the de facto, the flagship AI service, and with no laws and regulations to keep that stuff in check, there's a tremendous amount of demand on a corporate level to essentially hoard as many chips as possible to create the highest volume as possible when it comes to servers and AI functionalities to be able to outshine the competition, because whoever comes out on top in this AI race potentially have billions or trillions to garner if this technology and this generative AI trend becomes established as a norm. When there's a market that's brand new and rife with financial opportunities, there will always be this huge rush, this gold rush towards that. And that's what we're seeing here with AI. And the after effect of that is that chips required to make AI a reality are in high demand. And so that's leaving a lot of the chips necessary for gaming devices in short supply and therefore in high prices. And that will have this immense ripple effect that will impact gaming as a whole. So yeah, gaming right now is already so untenably expensive compared to what it was. The price increases have been unprecedented. And now the fact that there's the possibility that we'll see yet another price hike and that gaming is about to become even less financially accessible is something that I dread. And for this particular potentially upcoming instance, we have AI to thank. And it's not even the kind of AI that is useful to society as a whole or to certain work environments and whatnot. It's the kind of AI that is morally questionable and aims to benefit the corporations more than the end users, and then all of the artists and all of the contributors, who did not consent to contributing to AI, but no laws and regulations are in place to prevent the kinds of practices that are currently occurring with AI that a lot of people would say, should not be allowed. But yeah, I suppose only time will tell how all this will pan out. But this is just a warning on the present circumstances that might lead to less than ideal situations when it comes to prices for gaming hardware. And that's my take. I'd love to hear what your thoughts and opinions are on all this in the comments below. And to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.